Wanted to give you an update of the holding area that we're working on at the upper pastures in Rafa Ranch. Progress is important, and I'd like to show you that and also show you kind of what we're working on up here. This is a holding area, so from both upper pastures we have gates that lead in, and then they'll lead out of this gate down to the lower pastures. I've got the welding machine in the back of the 62 GMC as we talked about earlier, and that's what we're working out of here until we get the welding truck done. But just kind of give you a little view of kind of what's going on here. We see the goats in the background. Here is the gate to the pasture on the left. That is the pasture with the pond. A lot of you are familiar with that. And so that is the gate there. Here we have these corner sections that are on all four corners. This here is a entrance to the back pasture on the right, and here we're going to have the sun in us in a minute here, but you can kind of see that back pasture. If you've been here for sunrise service on Easter, that's the shot you've seen. Here is a covered structure here. We're going to have an opening that goes to this covered structure, and if we ever want to use that for a pen, we can do that. Now, this is what we worked on yesterday. We've been putting each one of these little panels in and welding them in. They're horse panels. And a lot of tedious welding, and the welder real low. And so that's one of the things that we've been kind of plugging along at. And so it's really good to know that you are growing. A lot of people want to know when they come out here, what have you done? And so this is one of the things that we continue to work on. Interesting, before we started all this, we had to kind of clear everything out, and you can see over here on this side that there's a lot of wood stuff. There's just kind of cobbled up stuff, and so all of that kind of thing had to all be removed so we could do the work that we needed to do here. Have you ever thought about your spiritual life? Have you ever thought about if the person I was 5 years ago met the person I am today, would they be impressed or disappointed? Because there ought to be some spiritual growth in our lives. If in fact we are children of God, and if in fact God is really working in His Spirit in us, then we ought not be the same person today as we were before. In our devotional today, it's titled Attentive to His Children. On the bottom it says just a thought. It says prayer or communication with God is not to get our will done, but to change our will to His. I find this extremely interesting. And it takes attentiveness, and it also takes a bit of assessment. Blaise Pascal says, the heart has its reasons that a person or that reason knows not of. And so the heart has its reason that reason knows not of. And so this idea is that if you were going to prove God, you could totally prove Him by a changed life, but you might not be able to put that in some kind of cohesive thought that you could publish a book and convince other people, because God is relational. And so it's that relationship that changes mankind, and that is the greatest testimony of all. There are some things that you're going to find that really are evidences of change in your life. One is attachments. We are really attached to things, and we identify ourselves by things. It is something that just really plagues us. Our relationships, our possessions, our positions, these things really seem to define us. During a period of spiritual growth, what happens is you find yourself listening to these labels less. You listen to the labels less because you know what? It's not important, all this stuff, because I'm a child of God. Two is you question. Now, what do you question? Well, look at Job and his friends. They questioned everything. And so as you go through these times of spiritual growth, you begin to question things, patterns, friends, all of these things you question. then you begin to seek connection because you've been kind of breaking things down. And so now you're trying to say, how does all of this connect? And so you're seeking those connections, and you find it in those around you. You become way more compassionate. You develop some spiritual insight and wisdom. This is amazing. You find reduced anxiety. That can be found in peace. You enjoy the moment. Like, I just really enjoy what I'm doing right now. And I do. And the last thing I would like to just bring out is solitude. You're okay being just you and the Lord. In fact, the more noise there is, kind of the less you like it. These are some evidences of spiritual growth. Blaise Pascal also said this, and it's kind of shameful about our society and condition as mankind, but he said we would prefer to lie to ourselves. So we would rather have a reputation of being courageous and being a coward than actually being courageous. He also says that we'd rather be seen by others as being good and yet being bad. Now, this is a person that does not want to go through the process of spiritual growth where a lot of things are stripped out of your life. All the props, all the facades, they're all gone. And now what happens is you have to completely rebuild and let God do that. And so when you go through the process, you find it's rather exciting. If you take a look at the progress here, it's really exciting. In fact, we'd like to see things happening every day. That may not be possible, but definitely every week we want to see how this unfolds. And so let's think about that in our lives. What is the spiritual progress in our lives? So we know that God is incredibly attentive to us as his children. We ought to be attentive to him. And when we do that, we will make assessments in our lives. When we find that there are things that are not measuring up, we'll allow him to remove those things and bring in those things that really bring him honor and glory, bring us peace and assurance, remove the fear and anxiety out of our lives so that we can be individuals of joy. May God richly bless you. Thank you so much for going on these journeys. Thank you for sharing these videos. May God bless you. Amen.